Sculpture studios will often get asked to create the large Bafta mask for the television awards ceremony. Quite often the designer will come to sculpture studios with a working model and a design on how he wants it to look on stage. Now, working from the actual Bafta mask itself, we do some working drawings and we scale it up. First of all, we create a plaster mould and break it down into 25mm sections or 1 inches. From this maquette, we then stack up the polystyrene into 2-foot slices, but we do keep the polystyrene loose so we can work on each of the pieces at ground level only. Here we have the top part where I'm starting to map out the hair, and this part here is where I'll start to construct the nose. It actually looks a bit of an abstract face at first, but we actually get to work with hot wire and wire brushes, and then we slowly whittle it away. And each and every case we keep the lines on top of the polystyrene so we can keep an eye on what we're making, and always is using the reference of the smaller model to keep a check as well. As it's not open for interpretation, it has to look exactly like the Bafta mask itself. Each time Sculpture Studios has been asked to create these faces or masks, they always have to use the Bafta mask on stage, but each and every designer wants it looking in a different way and a different size and in a kind of unique fashion, so it looks different from last year. But Sculpture Studios normally gets the project to create it. We always start off by creating the Bafta mask from polystyrene and then ending up finishing in fibreglass. However, the bigger it gets, the more pieces it has to be cut into. In this particular one, we cut it right down the centre, so it's good for transportation and then putting up on stage. The awards ceremony is normally held in the Royal Opera House in London. In this image you can see it split down the centre, and underneath we actually create a really tight flange, so when it gets to sight we can actually get underneath and then bolt it up together, and then when we get it all together and stood up we can actually do the finishing touch on the outside to make it perfect on stage. Each Bafta mask tends to be unique in terms of the finish or the style of finish, so when we actually get to site we normally go up and we do a lovely finishing join down the seam, and so it can't be seen on television or even to the audience perspective. In this particular case, this one was done in 2 halves, gets to site, and they actually wanted it called gold leafed, so it had this really sort of metallic feel about it, which looked fantastic when it was on stage. And they also used it on stage several times or several years after, so it really worked well. Each year Sculpture Studios get invited down to the theatre to put it together and make good the joints. We made some Bafta masks to go outside the theatre, and they wanted to have it as a privet hedge type effect, so we stuck loads of this foliage on top of the actual original masks, so they looked as if they'd be nicely trimmed and grown that way. Looked really effective. It's not just me who creates these pieces of sculpture, it's all my fantastic staff and my sons and my freelance people who come and give me a hand as well. So thank you everyone for all your incredible hard work, it's really appreciated. I'd like to thank Bafta for coming to Sculpture Studios to have your wonderful mask carved. It's been a pleasure each and every time.